woman overcoming obstacles.
She had these cognitive challenges that created some difficulties.
But she graduated from high school.
She's just a woman who was looking for love.
And she'd finally found it.
He is giving her some sincere attention.
She's found someone that accepts her.
Somebody who really sees her.
But her happiness would be short-lived.
Hey, ambulance.
She had been beaten up.
How many people jumped on her?
I can't remember.
Was it simply because she was different?
She had developmental delays.
She didn't speak up for herself.
She was bullied throughout her lifetime.
Or had her desire for love lured her into a trap?
Someone took total control of their life.
And she wasn't the only victim.
That's what I feel like. Torture.
Her situation was similar.
Not only is he a serial abuser, he is a chronic liar.
There are monsters out there in the world.
September 7th, 2014. It's a quiet Sunday evening in Lumberton, North Carolina, a town of only 20,000, 2.5 hours southeast of Charlotte.
Lumberton is very rural. It's in the southeastern part of North Carolina. There's a lot of good in Lumberton.
Everybody knows each other. And when things go down, news travels.
And the 911 call that comes in at around 5 o'clock is sure to get everyone talking.
Robeson County 911, do you need ambulance or the law?
Hey, ambulance.
The caller is 29-year-old Christopher Lennon.
My girl is not waking up.
He says he's found his girlfriend, Princess Powell, unresponsive in their living room.
You say she's not waking up?
No.
He doesn't have a working cell phone, so he went next door to use the phone to make the 911 call.
Okay. Okay, stay on the line.
After dispatching first responders to Chris and Princess's address, the operator tries to get some preliminary information.
Do you know if she's breathing?
I don't know.
Christopher was hysterical.
And based on what he tells the dispatcher, it's easy to see why.
She's breathing for about 2 months.
Princess Powell was a lovable soul who had faced unique challenges in her young life.
She did have special needs, which set her apart a little bit.
Her level of thinking was probably about 5 or 6 years behind of what her actual age is. Talking about baby dolls or just talking about things that you expect a typical 9 or 10-year-old to discuss and not a 16 or 17-year-old.
Which sometimes caused problems for the teenager.
As far as Prince's and all kids that's in that bracket, the biggest challenge for them is peer pressure.
She was one of the people that was bullied throughout her lifetime.
And then when you fall within that spectrum, then you only want acceptance. So I think Prince's biggest challenge is I just want to be treated like an individual. I want to fit in.
Princess did finish high school, but soon faced a new challenge.
She became pregnant.
She might not understand the future ramifications of that, but in the right now, I can see her smiling and just, everybody she ran across, she probably was rubbing her belly and saying, I'm pregnant.
But reality soon intervened.
After she gave birth to her oldest child, she gave her parents custody.
With her challenges, she wouldn't have been able to do everything as a mother. So like in the middle of the night when a child wake up, she may need to warm a bottle or diaper change. She would have needed that assistance or someone to help her to be able to understand that. This is a real live baby. It's not a baby doll.
Although her parents had legal custody and responsibility of her son, Princess remained in his life.
She still lived with her parents.
She was able to spend time with her son.
Her mom and stepdad make sure the child is well cared for.
But the experience left Princess wanting more from life.
She's just a woman who was looking for love.
Sometimes we need to be reminded that just because someone has special needs, that doesn't mean that they can't have secure attachments.
And in 2011, at 18 years old, she finally found it when she met Christopher Lennon.
He was 8 years older than her.
To an 18-year-old that might have been impressionable and looking for love, not even considering having special needs, I could see where Princess might have thought he might have been her saving grace, very knowledgeable and more established. That would have been very appealing.
That's especially true considering the bullying she experienced as a teen.
Here, Christopher comes along and is not one of those bullies. And he is giving her sincere attention. For someone like Princess with those cognitive struggles, that will make her feel like, whoa, I have found my soulmate. Finally, I found somebody who really sees me.
You're so beautiful.
She feels a sense of belonging, a sense of security.
She seemed genuinely happy with him.
The relationship moved quickly.
When people have young love, they go full speed ahead.
Before anybody realized anything, she was packing everything up and moving in with him.
And the following year, she had even more exciting news.
I'm pregnant.
Really?
Yeah.
What better thing to be able to conceive a child with the love of your life, to be able to start fresh.
This was an opportunity to get it right. Another shot at giving birth to a child that she and her partner would love on and raise right there in their home.
And then, less than a year after Princess gave birth to their little boy, the couple was expecting again.
Even if there are some challenges as being a mother, it appears that she is functioning, she's moving on her journey.
But now, Princess's journey appears to be in jeopardy.
Chris called 911 and says he's found Princess unresponsive on their couch.
Do you know if she passed out or what happened?
No.
Then, too distraught to talk, he hands the phone back to his neighbor.
There was no cell phone, no landline in the home. So he went to a neighbor and borrowed their phone.
He said he woke up. She was lying about it.
Okay, tell him he needs to calm down.
This was very scary for him.
With first responders on the way, the dispatcher sends Christopher and his neighbor over to the couple's trailer to check on Princess.
Okay, listen, is she breathing? Have him see if she's breathing.
He can feel her breathe.
The answer appears to be no.
Ask him, does he want to try and do CPR?
No, I think it's too late for that.
I'm sorry?
I think it's too late for all of that.
The neighbor is someone who used to work at a funeral home.
I think she gone.
And when EMTs arrive on the scene a few minutes later, they confirm it.
They declared her dead.
And it didn't appear that she died from natural causes.
They noticed bruising to her face.
It was clear that she had suffered an assault of some kind.
Major Grimes, we'll need you at this location, please.
In the small town of Lumberton, North Carolina, 21-year-old Princess Powell had overcome numerous obstacles to build a happy home with her boyfriend, Christopher Lennon.
She's found someone that accepts her for who she is.
They had a child together and another one on the way.
But now, first responders have declared Princess dead and requested homicide detectives at the scene.
Major Grimes, we're gonna need you at this location.
She had bruising about her face, a lot on her right side and above her eyes.
In addition to the bruising, there was also evidence of blood coming from her nose.
Detectives are also able to determine that Princess has been dead for some time.
She was cold, and rigor mortis was setting in.
Looking around the house, the detectives find traces of blood.
You had blood that was in the bathroom of the residence. You had blood that was in the kitchen.
There was blood on the refrigerator door, along the walls, even on the cabinets.
Unsure where and how the attack on Princess occurred, the detectives turn to her boyfriend Chris to see what he can tell them.
Thank you, officer. Thank you. We appreciate it very much. All right, come with us.
On the scene, he was very friendly, very cooperative.
Just have a seat for us, Chris.
What about all the marks on her? Bruises and stuff on her face?
Chris then indicated they had left the night before around midnight, 1 a.m., walking towards the BP near their home.
She like walking all the time, man. We be bored at the house.
He and Princess walked down, made a purchase, and then began walking back home. As they got close to the residence, a vehicle pulled up and several females exited. He seen the females walking towards Princess.
Look who we got here!
So he goes and runs for cover.
Let's go, baby, let's go! I mean, what could I do?
And he assumed Princess had been right behind him.
I told her to come on.
Christopher says he hid. And when he heard the car pull away, he'd emerged to find Princess lying on the ground.
He sees that
Okay, baby?
she has been beaten.
I guess she couldn't keep up or something.
You okay?
She says she's okay, and they proceed to go home.
Look, let's get you home. Come on.
Back at the house, Princess cleaned herself up.
Which could explain the spots of blood in the kitchen and bathroom.
She's able to collect herself to the point that he says she's acting normal.
But Christopher says that as the evening went on, he became increasingly concerned about Princess and their unborn child.
At some point, she ends up in the bathroom for an hour.
Hey. Hey.
He thought that it possibly could have been a miscarriage because she was in there for so long.
Princess.
He was able to convince her to allow him into the bathroom, and he helped her off the toilet and back to the living room onto the sofa.
But after he got her settled on the couch, things still didn't seem right.
She started there talking out of her mind.
You want to go to the emergency room?
I think I just need to rest.
Okay.
I told her lay down, maybe she'll feel better.
But in hindsight, that was a mistake.
I woke up this morning and I looked at her like that and I said, oh.
Princess! Princess,
It was possible that her head injury was more serious than she had realized.
I mean, I was just in shock.
Chris is still in such shock that when the detectives turn back to the women that attacked Princess, there's little he can tell them.
He couldn't give us the color or the make of the vehicle.
They couldn't describe any of the women except for that they were black.
It was dark last night, man.
And the person who could help detectives the most is dead.
It's entirely possible that Princess knew her attackers.
Back during her school days, she was bullied.
Is it possible some of her bullies came back?
Or is Chris not being as forthcoming with the detectives as he appears?
He abandoned his pregnant girlfriend while she was being sought.
When police press Chris about his relationship with Princess, he says things are great between them.
He denied that there was any type of problems within the relationship.
There's no arguments, there's no fights, there's no issues whatsoever.
But there was something weighing on them.
He said that a few months earlier, the state had taken custody of their oldest child.
He couldn't really communicate to the police why that happened.
Although he hinted that it could have had something to do with Princess's disability.
They've been coming to the house, well, for our visitations.
They were working very hard at getting their child back.
They were getting through that. And this new baby that was on the way was going to make things even better.
After finishing up with Christopher at the crime scene, the detectives go to inform Princess's family of the devastating news.
They're distraught that their princess is gone.
And when the detectives relay what Christopher told them, her parents struggle to make sense of it.
They described her as a very mild-mannered, very loving, very easy to get along with person.
However, her parents admitted that Princess could have run into trouble in the past year.
Why do you say that?
Well, we really haven't been in touch with her.
Once she started living with Chris, the family really stopped seeing her, stopped being able to communicate with her.
That raised an immediate red flag for detectives.
Dictating who you can and cannot communicate with, that's one of the primary signs of control and abuse.
Princess Powell's family has just told the detectives investigating her murder that they haven't spoken to their daughter in nearly a year.
Her family says that once she got with Chris, that she no longer communicated with them.
He met her right after she graduated from high school, and that's when he began to put a wedge between her and her family and friends.
But they say the real break came once the couple moved in together.
The family really stopped seeing her, stopped being able to communicate with her.
And she even stopped coming by to see her son.
What happened next was even more surprising.
Their disability checks that was coming to them to help support her older son had been redirected back to her.
Why do you think she'd do that?
It wasn't her. It was Chris.
Having special needs sometimes makes a person susceptible to being easily taken advantage of or being easily manipulated.
She often had problems making decisions on her own, and that enabled Chris to take advantage of the situation.
Once he isolated her from the family, knowing Princess, she would not have gone anywhere without his permission.
Okay, but Princess never told you he was abusing her, right?
We suspected it, yeah.
However, they never were able to confirm because of the lack of contact with her.
But Princess's stepfather says he did see firsthand just how much power Chris had over her.
A month or two ago, I was at the gas station.
And when he saw her, he was shocked to see the condition that she was in.
He notices a black eye on Princess's face.
He attempted to speak to her, and she just ignored him.
And she walked right by me.
Worried, he'd followed Princess.
He tried to pull her aside in the parking lot and say, hey, you don't have to live like this. Please, come home. We love you. You have options.
But Princess continued to ignore him.
Princess, come on home, baby. We miss you. Princess.
It wasn't long before Chris noticed, of course, and Chris just really went off on her stepfather.
Leave her alone.
He was telling him, I'm tired of seeing you around. You need to stay away.
That was the last time I ever saw her.
You both have our deepest condolences.
Disturbed by what they've learned from the family, the detectives return to the trailer park to talk to Chris and Princess's neighbors.
The neighbors never saw Chris beat Princess, but they did report hearing screams coming from the home where Princess and Christopher were living.
It was a volatile, violent relationship, completely opposite of how Chris described it.
The neighbors also say that Princess was very submissive to Chris.
Several of the neighbors said that anytime you seen them together, he always walked in the front and she walked behind him and would often be seen with her head looking towards the ground. She didn't speak much. If you did try to talk to her, he would take over the conversation.
She was not given permission to speak. She was not encouraged to participate in conversations.
I immediately went to, this was a person who wanted to control her and would not let her be herself.
But it's what their friends and neighbors, Melissa Nichols and Kevin Harris, have to say about the day leading up to the murder that really interests detectives.
Chris had been drinking throughout the day, and they observed Princess walking behind him, and she appeared to be crying at some point.
Now, can you tell us why you think Princess was crying?
He beat the crap out of her, would be my guess.
On several occasions, Chris would tell him about the times that he beat Princess.
Chris was very vocal and very bold about his life with Princess, that he's got a relationship where he's doing what he wants to do.
And what he did most was beat up Princess.
So you saw Chris hit Princess?
But not exactly.
But according to Kevin, it wasn't really a secret either.
He told detectives that a couple months prior, they dropped by the trailer to see Chris and Princess.
We never actually saw her that night.
Chris actually told them, she can't come out right now.
He told them, I beat her bad. She looks like a monster.
Two friends of Chris Lennon and Princess Powell have told detectives investigating Princess's murder that Chris admitted to beating her.
They said that they went to the residence to see them, and Princess never came out the back room.
He said that he beat her so badly, she looked like a monster.
He's taking her ice packs and going back and forth to the room to give her something to deal with the swelling, but the friends never got to see her.
So when they got home, they said they called the police.
Law enforcement would actually go out and do a well-being check on Miss Princess.
Did the cops come out?
Yeah, but they didn't do nothing.
She said she was assaulted by someone else.
When pressed by the neighbors who had made those calls, she would admit that Chris had done these things to her, but never to the police.
Oftentimes, victims will protect their abusers because they love their abusers. And I can imagine that Princess felt like she didn't want the love of her life to go to jail for that.
It's very frustrating as an officer because you want to do what's right. But if the victim is not willing to testify, then you can't bring criminal charges.
And now, her friends fear that reluctance had cost Princess her life.
They discussed noise they heard around 2 or 2:30 a.m. on the morning of the incident.
Tell us about these noises that you heard.
She was screaming.
And that was coming from their trailer?
Yeah.
Think about the timeline. That's way different than what Christopher is describing with this brutal attack by a pack of women.
After talking to the couple's friends, the detectives bring Chris in for a formal statement.
Detectives start by going back over what he told them at the scene.
The location that we took the first statement was in my patrol car.
At the beginning of the interview, he was very calm, but as the interview began to unveil his untruthfulness, his whole demeanor changed, his attitude changed. The only person that told me y'all had this great relationship was you.
Who? Nobody else don't know us.
The detectives counter by describing what neighbors had told them.
There's one thing that everybody always said. You walk first and she walked behind with her head hanging low.
They also talked about how friends and neighbors said he rarely let Princess speak to them.
That's because she can't talk that good.
She can't talk that good.
Nah, she can talk. She talk to me fine, but she'll mess up sometimes, and she don't want to be embarrassed around somebody.
And when the detectives ask him about the time he'd beaten Princess so badly he'd locked her away so her friends wouldn't see, he denies it completely.
I ain't ever locked our bedroom doors don't even lock. How could I lock her in the bedroom?
And then you would treat her with cold rags because you beat her. She looked like a monster, according to what you told this person.
What? I told the person what?
That you beat her so bad they can't see because she like a monster.
No, I did not say that.
He claimed that his neighbors fabricated the whole story.
He and him done got in fights before. He don't like me.
When the questioning turns to the night of the murder, Chris continues to deflect.
Somebody said that they seen y'all walking from a couple of trailers back over that way last night, and that she was walking behind you crying. That would have been a true statement?
They're asking questions about shrieks and screams coming from the home.
I don't know what you're talking about with that, sir.
So somebody said they heard fighting going on in your house last night. They weren't telling the truth either.
Nope. Nobody want to say that because we don't do stuff like that.
Well, yeah, somebody said that.
Well, if they did, they lied.
Chris is still sticking to his story, in spite of everyone saying the same thing.
He maintained that the death of Princess was a result of her being assaulted as they walked home by several females. You seen the vehicle pull up?
Mm-hmm.
So was it a car or was it a truck?
I say maybe, I can't ever remember, man. So much stuff happened last night, you know.
Chris says all he knows for sure is that he woke up the next morning and Princess was dead.
Princess! I told you what happened, that's what happened.
But as the interview goes on, the detectives have even more reason to suspect that's not the case.
As the truth was being unveiled about him being dishonest in the death of Miss Princess, he began to get nervous. He would begin to wipe his forehead, state it was hot in the room.
You want me to open that door where maybe to cool off a little bit?
Yeah, but I'm really ready to go because, like I said, I ain't did nothing. I mean, like I said, I don't know why I woke up to my girl like that. I mean, if I would have did something like that, I would have not even tried to make a commitment or anything with coming down here or nothing like that. I would have been trying to get halfway to Mexico right now.
The detectives don't believe him, but they'll need more evidence to charge him.
They have to let him go.
After securing a search warrant, they head back to the couple's trailer.
We return to the scene of Princess' death.
And this time, they bring luminol.
Luminol is the product that, once it's applied, it can show where those blood spots were that you cleaned up.
And once detectives sprayed it inside the trailer, it revealed the truth about Princess's death.
It all had transpired right there.
Detectives in Lumberton, North Carolina, are all but convinced that Christopher Lennon is responsible for the death of his girlfriend, Princess Powell.
All the signs are there that this guy is abusing his partner.
And when the couple's trailer is sprayed with luminol, the signs say he murdered her too.
It now becomes apparent that a crime did actually take place inside the home.
You had blood that was on the hallways, on walls, and there was a large amount of blood in the kitchen area right by the refrigerator.
There was also evidence that Chris had tried to cover up the crime.
You could actually tell where the mop had actually swirled through the blood where he had cleaned up behind himself.
When the detectives returned to the station to review the results of Princess's autopsy, it confirms that she was beaten to death.
The initial autopsy report revealed that her death was a result of blunt force trauma.
She had multiple broken ribs and a punctured lung.
But it could not tell what the blunt force trauma was caused by.
However, the autopsy does show that her death couldn't have been caused by an attack on the side of the road as Chris claimed.
Her injuries that she sustained were so bad that there was no way that Princess could have made it home.
So the story that Chris painted for the police initially, where she'd got back to the house, became completely unreasonable and illogical.
We knew that Chris wasn't being truthful.
The autopsy also confirmed that Princess was pregnant.
However, while Chris told detectives she was only 2 months pregnant, the autopsy says otherwise.
She was a lot farther along. The fetus had developed to the point where you could recognize the little fingers and the little toes and the eyes.
With the results of the luminol and the autopsy, the detectives have enough evidence to charge Chris.
He was arrested and immediately taken into custody for the death of Miss Princess and their unborn child.
He's charged with first-degree murder and the felony murder of an unborn child.
But despite the mountain of evidence against him, Chris continues to insist he's innocent.
When Chris was arrested, he doubled down on his story and made no omission of guilt.
News of Chris's arrest comes as the community is still mourning the loss of Princess.
One of the teachers came back the next day and she was like, "You're not gonna believe what happened." And she shared with us the unfortunate circumstances of what happened, and that just broke my heart. I probably cried for probably about 2 or 3 days.
When you have this type of an incident in a smaller community like Lumberton, it affects the entirety of the community.
However, Princess's death also highlights the lack of support available in a small town like Lumberton.
Being in an underserved community that lacks resources, maybe not a lot of education around domestic violence, it's tough enough for an individual to feel like they need to get out of this situation. And if they don't have the means to do it, then they feel like there's no way out, and so they just stay.
Especially in the case of someone like Princess.
For individuals who are special needs, we need to reassure them that you don't have to follow what anybody says. You have a mind of your own, and you pretty much know what right or wrong is.
It's unfortunate that there were not supports available to her.
Because Princess could never break free on her own.
People would notice these marks on her body and would ask her, "Princess, what are these marks on your arm?" And she would always, "Oh, no, you know, I burned myself cooking." She would always provide cover for Chris.
And as the detectives build their case against him, they discover Princess isn't the first woman Chris has abused.
We started interviewing past girlfriends who was connected to Christopher.
That's how the detectives find a woman named Kelly Howell.
And Kelly Howell is a former girlfriend of Christopher.
She felt compelled to come to talk to the detectives.
She understood all too well exactly the life that Princess lived with Chris.
He's beat, abused every girl that he's been with.
Shortly after Christopher Lennon's arrest for the murder of Princess Powell and her unborn child, a woman named Kelly Howell has come to the station to speak with the detectives working the case.
Kelly Howell is a former girlfriend of Christopher Lennon.
How long y'all date?
3 years.
Kelly said that when she heard about Princess's death, she automatically knew in her heart that Chris had caused this young lady's death.
According to Kelly, that's because she knew exactly what Princess had been through.
She stated that Christopher was very, very controlling and that she was unable to maintain jobs because of his control, his anger.
He was very jealous. If I
went around anybody that was a guy, whether I knew him or not, I couldn't speak to him.
If she went to a grocery store and they acknowledged her or called her a name such as babe, she would be beat when she got home.
I had black eyes. He hit me all in the face.
She stated that she experienced several physical assaults.
He held me down, and I remember him asking me questions, and he would burn me, light a lighter, and burn me with it. And I still got a scar right there.
She says that Christopher's abuse was so bad that she often feared for her life.
There was times that he would grab me by my throat, and I just wouldn't know if he would let me go in time. But there was plenty of times I thought that I was going to die.
But unlike Princess, she had eventually managed to escape.
Kelly had some freedoms and was able to have some autonomy where Princess did not.
She had the freedom to go to work, to drive.
And one day she left and never looked back.
So he has no contact with you?
No contact.
But when she heard what happened to Princess, Kelly knew she had to come forward.
You know, I swear to God, I heard about this girl being beaten to death, found on a couch in that trailer park. He was the first person to come to my head. He was the first person.
The detective has no doubt that Kelly's instincts are correct.
Her situation was similar to Miss Princess's, but I think he learned from her relationship. Princess could not work. She was not allowed to work. She was not allowed to go anywhere. In his first relationship, she got away. And I think this relationship, he wasn't going to let that happen.
And unfortunately, Princess's disabilities made her easier to control.
He knew what women to target, and he actually built his skills from prior relationships.
But no matter how much he honed his manipulation tactics, there was one thing Christopher couldn't change.
Why don't you listen?
He was very easily angered.
And the detectives believe that's what took over him on the evening of the murder.
Chris had been drinking throughout the day, according to witnesses. And I think something triggered him, that evilness that he possessed. And that is when the assault occurred.
Why you made me chase you, huh? Huh? Where you going, huh?
Stop.
It wouldn't have been unusual for him to beat his partner, to torture this young lady and abuse her. But this time, he went too far, and it cost her life.
However, while the theory explains what happened, it makes securing a murder conviction problematic.
Trying to prove that he intentionally killed Princess was going to be a real challenge.
Was this just another episode of him getting a little heated, abusing her some, but not to the point of death?
As a result, the prosecutors work out a plea deal.
His charges were reduced to second-degree murder.
He's also allowed to enter what's known as an Alford plea.
Which means that he's not admitting that he committed this second-degree murder, but he acknowledges that, yeah, they got enough evidence against me to convict me.
In exchange for his plea, Chris receives a sentence of 31 years in prison.
I'm satisfied because it is 30+ years that a female on this earth will not be assaulted by Christopher Lynn and his evilness.
However, many who knew Princess feel as though it still falls short of justice.
We're talking about an individual and an unborn child. So in actuality, you took the life of two people, not one. Is 30 years enough? I don't think so.
But no matter what they think of the plea deal, everyone agrees that what happened to Princess was an unspeakable tragedy.
What really bothers me about what has happened here is we're supposed to be a small, close-knit community. We say it takes a village. Here's someone over here suffering that really needs our help, and we really let her down.
To take advantage of anyone is bad, but to specifically target people such as Princess is even worse.
There are monsters out there in the world, and it just breaks my heart. The world lost a bubbly, energetic human being.
He took the life of someone who was loved, a person who was fragile and timid, but was loved.
Welcome to Always True Crime, a podcast network bringing you gripping real-life stories that you won't be able to stop thinking about. Discover your next true crime obsession at alwaystruecrime.com.
In the lead-up to his trial in November 1975, 23-year-old Patrick McKay, the drunk, the druggie, the bully, and the petty pointless thief, who many said would amount to nothing, had become a celebrity. McKay was front-page news for almost a year, with his stage-managed photos under every headline, his confession of "I killed 11 people" printed in bold, his memoir repeated verbatim, his nickname cementing his legacy, and his name preceded by maniac, monster, psychopath, and now serial killer. What began as a petty and pathetic series of half-witted robberies to fund his alcoholism culminated in an 18-month campaign of violence and terror, with the bulk committed in the last 2 months. It wasn't planned, it wasn't neat, and possibly spawned from the accidental killing of Isabella Griffiths in a short burst of rage, as any of the 23-plus frail old ladies he'd robbed and assaulted could have been. The press bought the lie, as McKay wasn't a thug, but a bright, erudite storyteller who sought infamy. Questioned by Detective Superintendent John Bland at Brixton Prison in April 1975, McKay admitted,
"All I want to do is to be frank and honest,"
having admitted to 3 provable murders.
"But before I start, I've got another murder I want to get off my mind."
Being the drowning of a homeless man at Hungerford Bridge, and confessing or suspected of a total of 8. That took his tally to 11 kills. It was the moment which made him famous. But caught in a series of lies, he would also be forgotten. Patrick McKay, Two Sides of a Psychopath, Part F. His arrest record, dating back to when he was 12, was hardly the stuff of legend. 1967, age 12, he got 3 years probation for stealing garden ornaments and setting fire to a church curtain. 1966, a 12-month discharge for breaking a window. 1968, 2 years probation for GBH and 1 day in prison for robbing a boy of a watch. 1973, 3 convictions: burglary while drunk and issuing a forged check, possession of an offensive weapon while drunk, and damage to a property while drunk and disorderly. With his longest stretch being 4 months for the burglary of Reverend Brack's vicarage, in which he stole nothing. Luckily for him, the newspapers were too distracted by the unprovable details of his alleged cruelty to animals and his so-called obsession with the Nazis to explore his paltry criminal past or his confession. Of the 8 murders he was suspected of or confessed to, Heidi Manil's case was high profile, so parts he could recall, but he still got details wrong and there was no proof he was even there. He confessed to Mary Hines, but had to be coerced by detectives. Stephanie Britton and Christopher Martin he denied killing, possibly to protect his legacy. Leslie Goodman he confessed only to the robbery, maybe to give his murders a sense of mystery. And Sarah Rodmell he denied, perhaps owing to the sexual element. He could of course be innocent of all 6 murders, but there was no solid evidence to convict him. As for the homeless man he supposedly drowned, McKay said,
"I lost my temper. I grabbed him by the pants and the neck and heaved him over the edge. The water splashed up. He must have gone under. And then I saw him come up. He started splashing, and then he went under again."
police pulled 3 bodies from the river, and none matched this description. But as a film fan who was inspired by the 1970s craze for serial killer movies, A Clockwork Orange was withdrawn from circulation in 1973 due to copycat violence, especially in one scene where a homeless man is murdered. But was this an inspiration for Mackay's lie? It made perfect sense for Mackay to lie about killing 11 people, of which 8 he later denied. Of the killers who existed in his era or were popular in the crime books he read, George Chapman, the Borough Poisoner, Trevor Hardy, the Beast of Manchester, Ronald Jepson, the Babes in the Wood Killer, John Strafford, who was Britain's longest-serving prisoner until Mackay, and Graham Young, the Teacup Poisoner, all had 3 confirmed kills, but are still largely forgotten by the general public. Whereas to be infamous and cement his everlasting legacy, 3 confirmed kills wouldn't be enough. John George Haigh, the acid bath murderer, had 6. John Reginald Christie of 10 Rillington Place had 8. Thomas Neil Cream and the Moors murderers both had 5. Gordon Cummings, the Blackout Ripper, had 4, but is mostly unknown due to the war. Jack the Ripper had an unprovable canonical 5. Although, who needs proof with such a sensationalist story? And with a new breed of killers, like the Zodiac with 5 and Edmund Kemper with 10. By tomorrow, Mackay's forgotten headlines could be used to wrap fish and chips. Mackay would have known that his pitiful backstory lacked credibility, that his accusations of sadism were paper-thin, that his photos and quotes were obviously curated, that many detectives felt he was an inveterate liar who lies about trivial matters even when it's unnecessary. And with all 3 killings he was convicted of being manslaughters, not murders, his ploy could be easily picked apart. Since his release from Wandsworth Prison, having planned a campaign of violence and terror, across January to March 1975, there was a clear escalation in his attacks on wealthy, elderly ladies across Chelsea, Belgravia and Finchley, with one erroneous attack on Sunday the 3rd of February 1975 at Red Lion Square in Holborn, where he violently robbed an old lady on her doorstep of £25 and an inscribed silver pen. By that point, his robberies were almost a daily event, ending with the killing of Father Anthony Green on the 21st of March. When arrested at the Cowdrey's home at 48 Grantham Road in Stockwell, Mackay was sat on the sofa, hungover, and when asked what he would do that day, he simply said,
"Dunno, probably get pissed again."
But by then, Mackay had murdered 3 people. So why did he stop? Why did he then confess to killing 8 more? And then withdraw his confession? Of those he'd confessed or was suspected of, they were all as similar in method and motive as they were dissimilar, and as provable in evidence as they were disprovable. But unlike the first 7 killings, the 8th had one thing that the others lacked: DNA evidence. Ivy Lillian Davies, known to her customers as Auntie Ivy, was a 48-year-old cafe owner from the seaside town of Westcliff-on-Sea on the southeast coast of England in the county of Essex, 50 miles west of Mackay's hunting ground of Chelsea and Belgravia, and 28 miles north of his hometown of Dartford. Born on the 30th of December 1926, little was reported about her early life, but described as a well-liked and popular woman with a bubbly personality and a good morning for everyone. There was a great pain in her heart and an intense loneliness she would hide from her friends and her customers. In her early 20s, having met and married a soldier whose surname was Slark, Ivy had lived a very unsettled life, being bounced between army bases all over the UK as the Cold War slowly heated up. As a squaddie's wife, she had just one purpose: to bear children. And from the late 1940s, 8 would follow. Patricia, Ivy Jr., Susan, Victor, David, Stephen and Carol, with Karen dying aged just 3 months. with no money, no freedom, and a husband who was physically violent and mentally abusive to this small dark-haired woman with thick-rimmed glasses. For the sake of her children, Ivy sustained more than a decade of torment and torture at the hands of this brute by taking the beatings to protect them. In 1960, plucking up a gallon of courage, Ivy divorced him. And moving from Yorkshire in the north of England, she fled from his fists to the seaside town of Westcliff-on-Sea to start again. As a single mother of 7 children, who, when and if she had a second to herself, earned money as a waitress. Her whole family needed a fresh start. And although an old-fashioned and impoverished part of the country, whose main income was furnished by a throng of tourists, mostly in the summer months, its sandy beaches, crisp sea air, and seaside fares made it a good place for a young family living on benefits. But always seeking love, the next man in Ivy's life came with a complication that none of them anticipated. Again being a soldier, this time based near Shoeburyness, he loved Ivy and wanted to marry her. But being transferred to Colchester, he flatly refused to raise another man's child, and Ivy had 7. Why she made this decision is something that we can never know. Maybe she was terrified of loneliness, was bullied by another brute into making a bad decision, or was traumatized by the abuse she had suffered. But with the exception of her 2 eldest daughters, Patricia and Ivy Jr., her 5 youngest children were put into care at the Seaview Children's Home in Shoeburyness, with Vic, her eldest of 3 sons, ending up in foster care, where he suffered abuse which changed the course of his life for the worse.
Vic later said, "She wasn't the angel they made her out to be."
She was cold to the children she'd abandoned. And with the relationship with the soldier lasting just 8 months, although she tried to get Susan, Victor, David, Stephen and Carol back from foster care, social services said no. This was the side of her life she hid from her customers, with her face always bright and bubbly, when her heart was plagued with guilt and regret. Despite her past, Ivy made the best of her present in Westcliff-on-Sea, an old-fashioned seaside town full of hotels, B&Bs, a golden mile of arcades and fairs with a famous pier. And in the Orange Tree, a greasy spoon cafe on the western esplanade built into the railway arches. Since 1968, she'd worked for Ernest Hassler as a waitress. But in 1972, having saved up enough money, she became its owner. Nicknamed Auntie Ivy, she was a popular and well-liked face in Westcliff. With the cafe far from busy off-season, she made ends meet by working part-time as a school cleaner. She had a small but close circle of friends who she liked to play bingo with. And plagued with loneliness, she'd started dating again. And although she'd fought to rebuild her life, she was haunted by her past. In 1965, when her son Vic was just 8 years old, he tried to rekindle a small hint of a relationship with his estranged mother. It's something this young boy would do for almost a decade, even though it was strained and frosty. But by the January of 1975, with Vic's life having hit the skids and descended into petty theft, age 18, when Ivy found out that he'd been locked up in a young offenders institute in Northampton, she wrote him a letter. He recalled,
"It was a Dear John letter. She said she was disgusted with me and that she never wanted to see me again."
For the second time in his life, his mother had rejected him. And with her brutal murder just days away, as much as he wanted to, he would never see her again. Sunday the 3rd of February 1975 was a typical late winter's day, being mild with a little drizzle. At 6 a.m., as was her routine, 48-year-old Ivy opened up the Orange Tree Cafe. Being off-season, it was quiet except for the usual crowd ordering fry-ups, scrambled eggs, beans on toast and mugs of tea. It was a non-exceptional day, just as the week and month prior had been, with no incidents or strangers. At 5:30 p.m., the sun set as Ivy locked up the cafe. And although a business owner, as women couldn't own their own bank accounts until later that year, wearing a bluey-green dress, she was last seen by her friend, Ernest Hassler, carrying the day's takings. And although that moment would have been a perfect opportunity for a thief, nobody robbed her. By 6 p.m., again as was typical, she returned home, alone, to 21A Holland Road. A little bungalow neatly hidden between a set of 2-story Victorian houses. A place you could only find if you knew about it. That evening, she had planned to meet up at Palace Bingo in Southend with Margaret Jury, a friend and a fellow cafe owner who was the mother of pop star Alvin Stardust, who looked remarkably like her. But instead, she stayed at home. She made a cup of tea, and having hidden the take-ins in an unused oven, which she did every day as she didn't own a safe. Having got into her nightdress, she watched the telly. On ATV, at 7 p.m. was Master of Melody. At 7:25 p.m. was Sunday Night at the London Palladium. At 8:20 p.m. was Once Before We Die, a 1966 war drama starring Ursula Andress, with the news at 10:15 p.m. and close down at 10:30 p.m. We have no idea what she watched, or who she may have watched it with. But right there, on the rug, it's likely that her killer left his DNA. At 10:30 a.m. the next morning, when Madeline, a friend of Ivy's daughter Pat, noticed that the cafe was still locked, with the help of Ivy's neighbour Stella Zammit, they gained access to the bungalow with their own keys. And Madeline screamed, as Stella ran out crying, "Oh God, there's blood everywhere." Ivy had been brutalised by a maniac, and her killing sent shockwaves across this small seaside town. With the investigation headed up by Detective Chief Inspector Peter Croxford of Southend CID, the motive was key to establish. Ivy was described as a gentle lady who wouldn't hurt a soul, and a very lonely person who didn't have any real friends. But with no signs of a break-in, and the door locked from the outside, Vic stated
she wouldn't open the door to anyone,
so it's unlikely she'd let a stranger in. As for theft, DCI Croxford said,
jewellery was left on the television set and £20 in cash nearby.
A red and white purse was missing, and £1,800, roughly £20,000 today, was found in the oven where she'd left it. The rooms hadn't been ransacked, but then maybe this was a kill for thrills, or a robbery gone wrong. No break-in, no theft, a superficial ransacking, and no clear motive. But was it Mackay? Found slumped on her living room settee, dressed in a nightdress, although her killer had attempted to strangle her with an unstated ligature. Ivy had been brutally bludgeoned about the head by a heavy object with considerable force. Blood had spattered up the walls, across the ceiling, over the floor, and with her skull smashed open, someone had attacked her with a hatred or a short burst of rage. With detectives keeping the weapon a secret to snare the killer when questioned, the press had wrongly claimed it was an axe, which could have been why it was linked to Father Crean's murder, when in fact it was a 20-inch long, 3-pound pry bar made of high-tensile steel, as used by mechanics in factories with gear wheels. It didn't belong in the house, yet it was dumped in a curtained alcove not far from the body. The crime scene was strange, but this wasn't the oddest detail about Ivy's senseless killing. As with Dr. Cameron the pathologist putting her time of death at around midnight, with the TV schedule finishing 90 minutes before that, her killer may have put the television on to obfuscate his true intent. And although no sexual assault was detected on this semi-clad woman, on the rug before her lay a semen stain. But being 2 decades before DNA was used in modern policing, it was missed by forensics. In total, 3,000 people were interviewed. 300 friends, family and associates were fingerprinted. A false sighting of Ivy at the Palace Bingo in Southend turned out to be her doppelganger, Margaret Jury. And of the police's likely suspects, her son Vic had a cast-iron alibi being in prison. A photo fit of a late 30s man with greying sandy blonde hair pointed to an innocent cafe regular. A tall, dark-haired man in his early 30s, similar to the man thought to be Mackay, who'd previously been seen at the Mercers, was spotted that day near the train station. And although, after his confession, Detective Superintendent Simon Dinsdale stated,
Mackay was a figure in the investigation, but as some kind of vagrant, he was ruled out.
Detective Chief Inspector Ray Newson also confirmed
he wasn't seen as a likely or possible suspect.
On the 7th of April 1975 at Southend Coroner's Court, after just 5 minutes deliberation, the jury returned a verdict that she was murdered by person or persons unknown. And although the investigation continued, soon every lead would be exhausted. Ivy Davies was buried at the Sutton Road Cemetery on the 17th of April. And until further evidence or a confession presented itself, the case stalled. Over the years, many theories and sightings have been presented. In 2017, a former waitress at the cafe claimed that Ivy had been killed by an escaped patient at the Runwell Mental Hospital posing as a doctor, who'd given his name as Patrick Mackay. Ivy's son Vic also said detectives told him
Mackay had signed on the dole in Southend,
which proved he was nearby during the week of the murder. But this could be police coercion, as seen in Mary Hines' murder, as we know where he was on the night that Ivy was killed. In the unreliable book, Psychopath, it states,
Mackay said he knew the cafe and admitted that he'd contemplated robbing Miss Davies, but that he'd not been in Southend since 1972.
Even though there's no provable origin for this quote, coming from the unprovable source that Mackay said he'd visited the Mercers. Several newspapers also stated
Mackay had bragged in Brixton Prison about Ivy's murder.
But again, there's no name, no date, and no origin for this quote. And although sensational and feeding the legacy that Mackay had crafted, this kind of speculation also lets the real killer walk free, having never been punished for his heinous crime. In 2025, Vic, Ivy's son, told the tabloid newspaper The Sun,
the way she was killed was his MO. She was ripped apart on one side of the body. Whoever did it had undressed my mother, put her in a nightdress, and then put her on her bad side, then turned the TV on.
Details which don't appear in any other reliable source. And also, if true, facts which point to this not being a killing by Mackay, but by a sexual sadist. On an unspecified date in May 1975, after his infamous but shaky confession, Mackay was driven in a police van to the Orange Tree Cafe in Westcliff-on-Sea, and Ivy's home at 21A Holland Road. He stated he didn't recognise either, and wrote in his memoir,
I was never charged with this, and I think not too. It certainly wasn't me they wanted.
Which makes sense, as it's unlikely he was even there. On the night of Sunday the 3rd of February 1975, after Ivy had locked up a cafe and headed home, Patrick Mackay, a 6'2", stoutly built, mixed-race man with a soft voice, who never disguised his face in any of his attacks, robbed an elderly lady on the doorstep of her home in Red Lion Square in Holborn, central London. He stole £25 and an inscribed silver pen. She later identified her attacker as Mackay. So why would he kill a stranger in a place he barely knew? And how could he be in two places at once? The most likely theory was that, being lonely and dating again, Ivy had invited a man back to her home. In 2005, 30 years after the murder, with this cold case being reinvestigated, police discovered that when Ivy's bungalow was cleared out, a neighbour had kept her bloodied rug. It hadn't been touched in decades, and with advances in forensic technology, on it was not only Ivy's blood, but a semen stain. As a convicted murderer, Patrick Mackay's DNA had been retrospectively added to the database after it was set up in 1995, along with his fingerprints. A comparison was made, but it didn't link to him. In November 2006, Essex police arrested a 68-year-old unnamed man from Basildon who lived near Ivy at the time. And according to John Lucas in his reliable book on Mackay,
when Ivy rebuffed his advances, he lashed out with a pry bar. Covered in blood, he crept back to his own house, confessed to his partner, and she returned with him to Ivy's house to make the scene look like a burglary.
But with the crime scene gone and lacking in sufficient evidence, the Crown Prosecution Service decided not to charge him, and he was bailed. Mackay was charged with 2 of the 8 additional murders. Only this wasn't one of them. But that's also part of the problem with his legacy as a serial killer, that he made his name as a liar. While incarcerated, Mackay was approached by an associate of Stanley Rogers, who was awaiting trial for the murder of 10-year-old Alison Chadwick, whose body had been found in a sack. Mackay was offered £15,000 and £20 a week for 15 years to confess to the killing, but instead he tried to blackmail Rogers. Mackay was an inveterate liar. Everybody knew it. And although he told Detective Superintendent Bland that he was
relieved that at last I was telling someone what I'd done,
he also later stated,
I deny any killings, other than the 3 I admit. I can't recall any incident categorically linking me to those.
Tried at the Old Bailey on the 21st of November 1975 in Court 2, this minor celebrity wouldn't get the attention he desired or required to fully cement his legacy. As with his legal team fighting to get him convicted of manslaughter by diminished responsibility and not murder to ensure that he would be sent to a psychiatric hospital rather than a prison, his confession to killing 11 was dismissed. In a short but perfunctory trial, Mackay was declared sane and diagnosed with a severe psychopathic disorder, but not a mental illness, convicted of the manslaughters of Adele Price, Isabella Griffiths and Father Anthony Crean. Justice Milmo sentenced him to a minimum of 3 life sentences to be served concurrently, and held on Her Majesty's pleasure, he was warned that he may never be released. The killings of Heidi Manilk, Mary Hines, Stephanie Britton, Christopher Martin, Leslie Goodman, Sarah Rodmell, Ivy Davies, and the unnamed homeless man, if he ever existed, remain unsolved. Of those, Mackay stated,
I'm glad I wasn't done for those others.
And although unprovable, Scotland Yard stated,
we are satisfied that he is responsible for 10 killings.
With the only one they didn't think was him being Heidi's. Mackay was never sent to Broadmoor, along with the likes of Peter Sutcliffe, Robert Maudsley, and later Peter Bryan and Daniel Gonzalez. Instead, being insane but volatile, he served his time in Category A prisons, where as one of the most violent prisoners, he attacked staff and held a teacher hostage. In March 1995, at the end of his minimum term, an independent parole board declared,
his risk is too high to be safely managed in the community.
So he remained behind bars, later making him the UK's longest serving continuous prisoner. But growing older and passive, since 2017, he's been housed at HMP Leyhill, a low-security men's open prison, and has been seen on monitored day trips in Bristol. Now aged 73 and having changed his name to David Groves, it's uncertain if he will ever be released. He's a man that the law is too terrified to release, that society doesn't want back, and with the truth about his crimes barely known by the wider public. As Vic, Ivy's son, sums up,
everyone knows he did more. He hasn't shown any remorse.
Even though there's no hard evidence to prove that he had. So why isn't Patrick Mackay as famous as other killers like Shipman, Christie, or Haig? Like his life, his legacy had no consistency. As a boy, his early crimes were nothing more than random acts of robbery to fund his alcoholism, with the sadistic cruelty he was later famous for, only there to gain attention. He was lost, alone, confused, angry, and bounced between institutions that didn't care about him, being told that he was worth nothing and diagnosed as a psychopath aged 11. He was ignored, except when he was bad. Like his robberies, his killings were unplanned. The first, Isabella Griffiths, was a rage-fueled robbery which went wrong. The second, Adele Price, was similar and was a murder as many of the others could have been. Father Green's killing was personal. And then, Mackay quit, as he couldn't commit to anything, even murder. And that's the problem. Not only did he repeatedly lie, not only did he fail to provide proof, but also, in all of his murders, whether he was convicted of, confessed to, or suspected of, all are inconsistent. In his memoir written before his trial, Mackay acknowledged,
"My life was wasted. I now realise that it is wasted forever to rot. When I look at myself, I could put a bullet through my head for the kind of bloody life that I've had. But I don't know who would do me that service. I've often thought to myself, whenever I'm alone, that it would have been the best thing I could ever have done."
As all he brought to the world was pain and misery to others, like his father. And his legacy was ruined. With just 3 confirmed kills to his name, Mackay has been usurped in the pantheon of serial killers. As Nielsen had 12, Sutcliffe had 13, Dahmer had 17, Bundy had 20, and Shipman had 218 confirmed. If he had really killed 11, as he claimed, he would be infamous. But being convicted not of murder, but of the lesser charge of manslaughter, not being willful murders, his manslaughters make him ineligible to be a serial killer. As a late decision to make something of his life, Mackay had pushed his luck just a little bit too far. So now he's not remembered as an infamous serial killer, but as a serial liar. That was the final part of Patrick Mackay, Two Sides of a Psychopath, by Murder Mile UK True Crime. Parts 1 to 4, covering in detail the killings of Father Green, Isabella Griffiths and Adele Price, as well as Mackay's life, crimes and trial, are now available in full as part of this crossover series with the True Crime Enthusiast podcast, with all 6 parts by Murder Mile available now in this feed. Just search Patrick Mackay, Two Sides of a Psychopath, or click the link in the show notes. Oh, there we go, folks. Oh, I'm done. I can pull my little winter hat down over my ears and try and get my little bonds a little bit warmer, because it's about 2 degrees outside, and obviously I've closed the windows and all the doors so it's nice and quiet for you, so I can do a nice recording and it sounds nice and you don't hear all the coots and the ducks and the bastards in the aircraft and some annoying lady who went past too fast in her boat, and I had to go out and repin myself, and joggers, and obviously the usual people talking about their husband's piles. I'm just going to take my little hat off. There we go. But there we go. That's that recorded. Oh, that's me done. That's the end of Patrick Mackay. I hope you enjoyed that. That was one of those series that we've been meaning to do for ages. Obviously, really wanted to do something with Paul for ages, and this has gone really well. So we're planning to do something big and exciting for the future. So we're already kind of thinking about that. People seem to really like it. I think that's the idea that we wanted, was to cover a project. We take two different sides of it. You can listen to my end if you want to, or you can listen to Paul's end if you want to, or or you can listen to both parts. That's the whole point. Or you can listen to one then the other, or either verse, or you can listen to both weekly. And people are doing it in different ways, and everyone's kind of finding that it's an exciting way to do it. And that's what we wanted, was something original and different. And covering a case that hasn't been covered fully, properly before. There's a lot of short half-hour. You can't do Mackay in half an hour. Just by listening to this, hopefully you've realised you can't do Mackay in half an hour. You can do a Wikipedia version, it's going to be shit. But if you want to get into the nub of who he is, you really need to explore every single case. And that's why with 8 that he was suspected of and 3 that he was convicted of, we were like, right, this needs to be like a 10-parter at least, which is why we've done it together, and it's worked out really well. So we've enjoyed it. So this is... did I say welcome to Extra Mile, the unscripted and unedited bit? I don't know if I did, but hopefully I did. Today is the 25th of November. Oh, thank God. So I'm in the past. Whoa! Let me tell you about the past. You can tell me about the future. Do Eva and I get married? Hopefully. 25th of November, that's what we're at. I've got 3 days of editing left to do. I'm going to write the Christmas special. And hopefully I'm going to be done by the 1st of December. Oh, and I've already marked up in my diary. I'm meeting some friends that night for drinks and some food. And I've already marked in my diary I'm going to have a fry-up in the morning. And then I'm just going to try and relax a little bit more and enjoy myself. So there we go. Oh, and then I'm gearing up because next year I'm doing something different. I'm taking my little boat on a journey. We've never really been anywhere. We just seem to cruise around London. And I thought to myself, I could do my job from anywhere. So I'm gonna piss off around the country in the boat, exploring places, moving every day. And if it takes me a year, and if it takes me 2 years, that's all good. I'm going to explore the country, visit little places, still do the podcast, and just have fun. Lots to explore. So I'm going to do that, and also it gives Eva a chance to visit all the pubs across the country. Well, basically get barred from all the pubs across the country, vomiting everywhere and violence and stuff like that. She may look elegant and all that, but really she's got a violent temper on her, and she knows how to use her fists, as we all know. Anyway, thank you to no new Patreon subscribers. I get it. Everyone's having tough times, and also it's Christmas coming up as well. But if you've got a little bit of money left and you think I would love to support an independent podcast, and even just £3 a week, £3 a month, actually, that's all it is, £3 a month. That really helps the podcast. Small podcast made from a boat with a man with an evergreen fixation. It really helps us small podcasts keep afloat. It really does, because advertising is not great at the moment. Some months it can be okay. Other months, I've had some months, especially last February, which was a shocker. I looked at the money I'd made, having worked every day for a whole year, and I looked at it and thought I would earn more money stacking shelves. So sometimes it's not great, but you know what? I love what I do. Right, let's do some quiz questions. Don't forget we've got answers at the end, and we'll dive into some extra stuff that may not have made it into the episode. Oh fuck! I haven't marked up what bits I wanted to discuss on the podcast. Bollocks. Hopefully I'll remember. Okay, question number 1. What is Patrick Mackay's name today? I often wonder whether he's going to change his name again, given the fact that we know what his name is now. Question number 2. What film may have inspired his killing of the homeless man? Question number 3. What was Ivy's nickname, according to her customers? Question number 4. How many children did Ivy have? There's technically 2 answers to that, so you can do either. Question number 5. What was the name of the man who owned the cafe prior to Ivy and who last saw her alive? Question number 6. Name one of the TV programmes that she may have watched that night. Question number 7. What was the name of Ivy's neighbour? I've solely put this answer in because I've got a joke about it. And question number 8, what court of the Old Bailey was he tried in? Well, I've got hiccups now. So let's dive into this. Normally I would have marked up what I wanted to talk about, but, oh, God, there's a question that I can't cover because it's a quiz question. It's a bugger. So, yeah, the homeless man. What he says is, it was before I killed the woman in Cheney Walk. I'd been drinking, I crossed Hungerford Bridge. Halfway along, I saw a vagrant coming towards me. He described him as late 40s to 50s. He wore a shabby greased cap, some beard growth, an overcoat, about 5'8", medium build. So it's a good description. But obviously, of all the people that were pulled from the Thames that day, and because it's a big river, and there's a lot of bridges, and there's a lot of suicides that go there, and also people accidentally falling in. A lot of bodies cross underneath the bridges. Therefore, there's quite a few mortuaries underneath the bridges. And there's a lot of places where the bodies kind of wash up as well. So, the police... So all the bodies that were kind of found, they couldn't find any that matched that description at all. And as you can see, Mackay is saying... He's given a relatively good description there, but... no one could be found who kind of matched that description. So, of the killings themselves, so obviously this is the final one that we've dealt with. Heidi first, and then there's Mary. And depending on the dates, it should be the unnamed homeless man comes in 3rd or 5th. We're not too sure because there's no real date on it. Obviously, Stephanie Britton and Christopher Martin, then Leslie Goodman. I still get tripped up with this because the press kept calling him Frank, but his name's Leslie. Then Sarah Rodmell, who we had last week, and then Ivy Davies this week. So that would be the order that they appear in. As you can see with his criminal record, I mentioned it in the episode. It's a bit crap. Stealing garden ornaments, setting fire to a church curtain, breaking a pane of glass, GBH, but then these are always when he's drunk, robbery. One of those was the attack on the young boy that we've mentioned before when he beat up some young boys who were trying to steal their watch. They were 12 years old, in and around that. He was so at 68, so he would have been late teens as well. So it sounds worse, but he's a boy as well. Obviously, the burglary, forgery, i.e. issuing a forged cheque. This was from Fire the Korean. Go to Paul's episode 1 if you want to learn more about that one, of which he was given a £10 fine and a conditional discharge for 2 years times 2. Obviously, he would balls this up because he was charged in Camberwell for the possession of an offensive weapon, which was him chasing a homeless man with a metal pole. Which we covered in the previous 2 episodes as well. That was 3 months suspended for 6 months. But obviously when he burgled Reverend Brack's vicarage, which we dealt with last week, that meant that his suspended sentences were no longer, suspended. What else we got? See, normally I would have marked up what I needed on here, but normally I mark it up in red and I could just dive into it. So his crime spree around this point, as we can see, if he had murdered Sarah Rodmell, that's just before the Christmas of 1974. We know he spent Christmas by himself. He was out getting drunk. So he was pretty much blind drunk. He was in a hostel in Barnet around that point. Boxing Day, as we covered last week, he attacked Lady Beecher. He was on the prowl. He was in and around Chelsea and Belgravia. So this is an area. So around this point, he's already worked out that wealthy ladies are in this area. This is where he needs to be. They will be loaned. Many are kind of widows. They've got handbags on them. In the handbags is going to be lots of money and things that you can sell. With Lady Beecher, he grabbed her throat, he pulled the knife, he snatched her bag and ran off. In there was £115, which is a lot of money back then, and a medallion worth £85. Hence, he did another robbery on Tite Street in Chelsea 3 days later. There's loads of robberies in between, but there's lots that he couldn't remember, and there's lots that were never reported. He's trying to get... Early January, he's trying to get jobs. So he was a porter at the Chicken Inn in Leicester Square, where he earned £10 a day. Around the same time, he was working at a vegetable packing firm, Barnon's, near Covent Garden Market. 20th of January, he mugged an old lady near his hostel in Finchley. He offered to do a shop or carry her shopping bags for her. 28th of January, an old lady at knife point in Chelsea, and he got £14 for both. So he's getting good money for this, and it's all within an area that's not too far from his house, whereas Sarah Rodmell is a distance away, and Ivy Davies is a hell of a distance away in comparison to all these. Do you know, he can do lots of old ladies, it's a shopping area, he can walk down random back streets, they're unseen by the public, he can snatch their bags, do it on a doorstep, boom, job done. He doesn't need to travel too far, and this is why kind of Ivy Davies doesn't really make a lot of sense. Obviously, Sunday the 3rd of February, this is the key one, Red Lion Square in Holborn, so that's central London, but slightly more east. It's still very central, though. Stole £25 and an inscribed silver pen. We're unsure of there's an uncertainty around the timings of this. Some people say it's very late afternoon, some people say it's early evening, some people say it's kind of mid-evening, but there's no real timing on this, which makes it really difficult. But if he's in Red Lion Square in Holborn and he's had a run of sprees in and around Chelsea and Belgravia, and he's in and around this area, why would he suddenly go to Southend? It doesn't make sense. That is a bit of a journey that he doesn't need to make. It just doesn't make any sense at all. But what it does do is it essentially gives him an alibi for the murder. So as we know, with Ivy, she was murdered that evening, so Sunday the 3rd of February. She closed up at 5:30, 5:45. She was home by 6. It is said she was murdered by midnight. It doesn't make any sense for him to have committed a slew of robberies where he's earning good money. And let's not forget, in and around these months, we mentioned it last week, he's earning a couple of hundred, I think it was like £800, which was something silly like £8,000 or something like that. It was £600 stolen over these months, so the equivalent of £8,000, and also things that he hadn't sold yet, like gems and jewellery and stuff like that. So he's doing well, and even after that, you can see. So 15th of February, Margaret Diver. So this was the crime that would ultimately, one of the ones that would convict him, because he went into this old lady's house. He ordered her to make him a cup of tea. He terrorised her for an hour, there was violence, and then he left. But he left his fingerprint on a teaspoon. And that ultimately is the reason why they're able to connect the murders to the slew of robberies as well. So, someone is gunning it past my boat. Oh... We've had weeks of rain and the ground is really boggy, and the mooring pins don't stay firmly into the ground. And when we get one day where it's slightly sunny, all the bellends come out and they start gunning their boats, thinking, oh, everything's fine, but they forget that, well, they don't give a shit that the ground is boggy, and the pins will come out and my boat will go way. I will go and have a word with them very, very shortly. Anyway, maybe I'll murder them. That would be lovely. I'll murder them in a funny way. So as you can see, his crime spree, 15th of February, that Margaret Diver. Then after we have that, 6th of March, Christchurch in Essex. He went through the pockets of a priest and snatched an old lady's handbag. 7th of March, Irma Lewis, 68. She was shopping in Victoria. She was a journalist. She entered a flat on Chesham Street in Belgravia. He followed her in, grabbed her from behind, threatened her to kill, stole a handbag with £25 in it, plus 2 checkbooks, a Boots voucher, a watch. 10th of March 1975, Adele Price. This is where he murders her. He went to Harrods deliberately looking for wealthy ladies to follow. So in and around this area, he's entirely focused on this area, places where wealthy ladies are. So why would he go to Southend, an impoverished area, and especially an impoverished area that's out of season as well? Like, if he'd thought to himself, I know, I'm going to go to the Orange Tree Cafe, and let's suggest for a second that the crappy book, Psychopath, the one from the 1970s, which is full of factual inaccuracy, but also statements which can't be proven. If he had been to Southend before, and if he already knew about the Orange Tree Cafe, and he'd already said, oh, I'm going to rob her, right? Why would he wait until she'd gone home and then try and get into her house? Why would he not wait until the shop is being locked up, as with Leslie Goodman, when his shop was being... If that is him, he picked a time when the shop was about to be shut up, and then he went in and robbed the place and then killed him. Right. Why wouldn't he do it then, when there's almost no one in the shop and it's easy to do and he's near a train station, and then he could flee, and she's got the money on her, because as we know, she can't have a bank account because she's a woman, and she's taking the money home and storing it in her oven, which she doesn't use. Why would he wait until that moment, which is much harder and he's likely to be seen, than robbing her in the cafe as she's locking up, holding a bag of money? That makes more sense. Not all this bullshit about him leaving Holborn, having committed the robbery on the lady where he stole the pen, and then somehow travelling on train all the way over to Southend, and then that night committing a murder. And then for a week, he's like, I know, I'm just going to stay in Southend. Oh, and just to make it so the police can find me, I will sign on for my unemployment benefits in Southend. Why? Doesn't make any... All of these things just don't make any sense at all. It's utter bollocks. And then, as we can see afterwards, so after that, he robbed Minnie Paris, a 71-year-old widow in Chelsea. This is exactly him. 18th to the 20th, there was more bag snatching in Chelsea. In around that time, he was back with the Cowdreys, and then Father Anthony Crean. Now, Father Anthony Crean, yes, he's in Kent, but he was on his way to his mother's, and his mother's in Dartford. And Father Anthony Crean, his house was not too far away from his mother's, so it makes sense he was there. But other places, it doesn't make sense. So let's just... Also, this was one of the things that I've put this in the episode, was his arrest. It's weird that he'd committed 3 murders by this point, and if he did want to be a serial killer, it's all very exciting. And you'd think he would either be nervous or terrified or excited or something like that, but he's not. He's sitting on the sofa, he's hungover, he's wearing his coat and hat as if he's going to go out, and he says, yeah, I'm probably going to get pissed again. He's not really planning a future. You would think if he did want to be a serial killer, he would be like, right, I'm going to do more. I'm going to, all of these robberies could easily have become murders, but they don't. So there's a lot of confusion on there. For me, when you look at his past, he's someone who just can't commit to things. He can't commit to jobs. He can't commit to getting a steady income. He's never had a girlfriend. He doesn't seem to be able to have friends. He doesn't seem to have a family relationship of any kind. Nothing he can commit to except getting pissed and committing robberies to get pissed, and that's it. And I think it seemed to be an interesting idea for him to go, oh, this could be something I could do, accidentally, but he can't commit to it. I think he gets to a point, I think Adele and Isabella were accidental murders. I think with Father Crean, he gets there, he wants to discuss with him about the repayment of the cheque. There doesn't seem to be any premeditation. It's not like he turned up with a weapon and was like, oh, great, I'm going to kill him. He used an axe that was owned by Father Crean. Even though he said that he carries his own knife, so why wouldn't he bring his own knife? It just doesn't make any sense at all. So it really does seem accidental. Not accidental, but as mentioned before, he has these... As people have mentioned before, they discuss him having a split personality. I think there is a sense of a calmness to him, and then, as we've mentioned before, he has this kind of warped morals, and then it spikes into a fast rage. This could be down to the drugs he was on. He regularly used drugs. He was regularly on amphetamines and things like that. So that could be why he's spiking. He could also be drunk as well. Even one of the ladies who he robbed and she survived, she said his eyes were like pinholes, so as if he was high on drugs. So he could be absolutely off his face, which is why this doesn't seem to make any sense at all. But there we go. Ivy's murder itself, with this, it's the same as the others, isn't it? It's if you look at it one way, it's Mackay. If you look at it another way, it's not Mackay. It's the same as all the murders here. If you make a decision that you think it's Mackay, and then you piece together all the information that compounds that and kind of backs up your theory, then it'll work. If you decide it's not Mackay, then it's not Mackay. It's that's the way this is. But there's nothing that really hints at it. There is, with the police asked for fingerprints of everyone who knew her and kind of associates and stuff like that. And because not a lot of people went back to our house, so her son would say that. I've got a quote from him somewhere about the kind of people that she would invite back. Where is it? Oh, yeah, Vic said she wouldn't open the door to anyone if it wasn't their time. You would just get a head out of the door telling you to go away. There was another guy called Bill Gardam who was a customer, and he said that one day their bowls game had been called off and she kept the cafe open for him, and he said she invited us home for tea and sandwiches and said that we could stay a while, and she was very kind to us. So it could be that she met Mackay and liked him because he is a personable guy. I know people look at the photos of him and go, "Oh, he's crazy. Look at the photos. Oh, that says it all." I don't need any evidence. I've seen a photo of him eating a chicken, and I go, "Oh, look at the way he's eating that chicken. He must be a maniac," which unfortunately a lot of people do because they don't like evidence. Whereas here, he comes across as a personable guy. He comes across as nice. People like him. He's softly spoken. He listens, which not a lot of people do. Whereas, so she could have met him and invited him back. It doesn't ring true. There's a lot of details in here that just don't make any sense at all. She didn't seem to have any enemies either. Her friend, a customer, Beryl, said she was one of the most generous, warm-hearted, and helpful people you could ever meet. But of course, her son Vic says that she was very cold and she wasn't the angel that everyone made her out to be. Her ex-husband was questioned, but at the time of the murder he was in Wales. Also, the soldier that she was dating, he had an alibi as well. Murder weapon. As mentioned, it was a steel pry bar used by mechanics in factories that use gear wheels, made by the US company Snap-on. It was engraved 2025 USA. One end was oval, the other end was sharp. It was 20 inches long, it weighed 3 pounds, made of high tensile steel, and it was relatively new. We don't know where it came from. Likely that the killer bought it with him because Ivy didn't own one, and why would she own one? She was strangled with a ligature around her neck, but it was never stated what the ligature was. I keep searching. Whether it was like a bathrobe cord or a stocking or something like that, we just don't know. Didn't seem to be any sexual assault. Seemed to be no real ransacking, but if there was, it was superficial. Things that were stolen didn't make sense. There's jewellery left on top of the television set and £20 in cash nearby. She had a red and white wallet-style purse that was missing, but no one knew if it contained any money. And of course, in the oven, which was her temporary safe, she didn't really use her oven to do cooking. Don't forget, she works in a cafe, so if she wants food, she'll just bring it home from the cafe. So apparently she wouldn't really cook at home. In there was £1,800, which was £19,000, £800 today. £19,800 today. And the pry bar was found in a curtained alcove near the body, which is very similar to Father Queen's murder. Again, a lot of similarities here, kind of the beating over the head, the no real sense of robbery, the murder weapon found nearby. A lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences as well. Let me just scroll down. As mentioned, fingerprints were found. So 300 friends, family and associates were fingerprinted, which suggests that there was a fingerprint found at the scene which may have belonged to the killer. It was never stated. This was again was one of these cases where the press were told some things but not others, and unfortunately, when they weren't told what the murder weapon was, they started making up bullshit. They started saying it was an axe, and I think that's why there's a connection. Another connection to Father Queen's murder is people go, "Oh God, both were killed with an axe," but it wasn't. One was killed with an axe, one was killed with a pry bar. In the same way that Mary Hines was killed with a block of wood. In the same way that Leslie Goodman was killed with a lead pipe. There's differences and the similarities, but they're not the same. Suspects wise, a dark-haired man in his 30s. Again, a vague description, which could be Mackay, seen heading to the train station. Could be him, might not be him. As I said, it was very vague. There were other people. There was a young couple who was seen knocking on doors of hotels and guest houses on the street opposite with no luggage at around 8:30 p.m., but they were tracked down. The 5'5" tall, late 30s, greying, sandy blonde-haired man, brushed back with a deep-lined face, pointed features, thick eyebrows, fingers which were nicotine-stained. That turned out to be a regular at the Orange Tree, but he hadn't been seen there for a while. That seems to be everything on those. We don't know much more about the 68-year-old man from Basildon, Basildunk, as the signpost on the way into Basildon calls it, Basildunk. The details about when Ivy rebuffed his advances, he lashed out with a pry bar. We don't really have any much more details on that. I couldn't really find much more in the press about that, so we just don't know. We don't know who the man is. We don't know the connection. It could be true. It didn't seem like the DNA was connected to him. So the semen stain found on the floor. So the neighbour, she still had the carpet from the living room. Why, after someone's been murdered, would you take up the carpet/rug, which is blood-stained, and put it in your attic? But she did. It was in the loft. It had been rolled up. No one had touched it for like 30 years. Forensics checked it, and they found, obviously, it was covered in blood, but also a semen stain. They did tests on the carpet, but it came up blank. Obviously, Mackay's DNA would have been tested because, not all prisoners are retrospectively added to the DNA database, but if you're of a significant level, if you have a history of violence and especially murder, it will be retrospectively added, which is why every so often when they go, oh, here's an old lady who's been beaten over the head in the 1970s and nothing was stolen, they're able to go, is it Mackay, is it not Mackay? And it is invariably not Mackay. Well, it's never... None of them are Mackay. So the DNA didn't seem to link to the man. It did seem to be somebody had said something and connections were made, but it was unclear whether the DNA was connected to him or not. It's very sketchy. The witness, who was 14-year-old at the time, a former Orange Tree Cafe waitress, who said that a doctor had come into the cafe on a day out with patients from Runwell Medical Hospital, and it was later found out that he was a psychiatric patient who claimed to be a doctor, but also said to the waitress that he gave the name of Patrick Mackay or something like that. This is just utter shite. The police investigated it. They found nothing. She said it was, the government, it was a big cover-up because they were embarrassed about all these escaped mental patients who got into the community and then decided randomly to go to a cafe. Just bollocks. Unfortunately, there's a lot of this. As we've seen over everything we cover, quite often people will make statements. They'll piece together things that they go, oh, I'll have a bit of that, I'll have a bit of that, oh, I'll ignore that bit, this bit, that could be a serial killer, that would be exciting, I'll piece that in. I don't think people mean to do it, but they do it. One of the interesting things that Mackay did, he'd often say that of the robberies he'd do, when he'd get into someone's house, he would look in their fridges. As he quite rightly says, people keep their money in fridges. This is an era where people didn't really trust banks, but also especially if they're women and elderly women, they wouldn't have had bank accounts. So, a lot of money would be kept under the bed, but also because people know that burglars know that money is kept under the bed, they'd keep it in their fridge. So he would always look in the fridge. So with that kind of ethos going on, if it was him, would he have looked in the fridge or would he have looked in the oven? It seems odd that someone would look into an oven, but you never know, do you? I'm just whizzing through. So again, there's a sexual element to this case. We saw this with the Sarah Rodmell killing, that there's no sexual element in any of the crimes that he does. You would suspect that there would be something there somewhere, but there isn't. You know, there's no fondling of the bodies, there's no kissing, there's no undressing of them, nothing like that. Bodies are dumped on the floor. He kind of leaves them. I think he looks at them for a while, you know, in a kind of, oh shit, what have I done? He listens to the radio. He falls asleep. He gets drunk, etc. There's no sexual element to him. In fact, he's never had a girlfriend. He doesn't have any sexual experience, and it doesn't seem to be a thing that he's focused on. Interesting. I was watching the documentary last night about Hitler's DNA, and they're sequencing Hitler's DNA and looking into his past to work out kind of what was wrong with him and stuff like that. And they said that he was a very unsexual man because of high in the psychopathy, but also because of one of the genes that he was lacking. That meant he had an undistended testicle, but also a micropenis, which we all knew about anyway. That's the way Eva describes me, as a micropenis. But because of that, he was very unsexual. Like, all these women would be fawning over Hitler, going, "Oh, what a wonderful man! Oh, do you know, you see all those things." But he didn't give a shit about women at all, and that seems to be the same with Mackay. Sex does not seem to be a thing, whether gay or straight, doesn't seem to give a shit. So, interesting. They could have had the same missing chromosome or whatever issue with the DNA was. Not going to dive into that. I didn't put in the episode about what you would have learnt from the newspapers, because we've already kind of covered this before. It's, you know, it was covered, but it wasn't hugely covered. With the book Psychopath, where it says Mackay said he knew of the cafe and admitted at one time he contemplated robbing Mrs. Davies. There's no evidence for that at all. Again, all these, I keep searching for it. Whenever, this is the thing that people have to do, is if they're covering a case and someone goes, "Oh yeah, the guy said he was going to murder her and he was going to cut her head off." Yeah, don't just write it. Search for it. Try and find the provenance of it. Trying to work out if it's true. Because even if, like, this book, Psychopath, is written by two journalists who would do from Panorama, BBC's Panorama, so very well respected, and there was a documentary went out just after the trial, and it was very lauded, and this book was lauded as well, but it's full of bullshit. It's full of a lot of stuff that is unprovable, and that's the problem. So it's all very well, like the Sun and the Daily Mail have repeated this shit verbatim, like going, "Oh yeah, he said he went to the Mercers. Oh yeah, they go, he went to the Mercers and that's how he met them." It's like, no, he didn't, you twats. Just do your job properly. Stop trying to create sensationalist shite for idiots to read and go, "Oh God, look, he must have done it." Take the time to step back and look at something and go, right, where's the providence for this? Does it exist? If it does, brilliant. We can use that. If it doesn't, you have to bin it, and you have to openly say this is shite. And that's one of the reasons why Paul agrees with this with the John Lucas book, the Forgotten Serial Killer. He covers his bases. Do you know, if it's provable, he'll say it's provable. He'll give you a source for it. If it isn't, he'll say this is unprovable, but this is why it could be here. Do you know, it's and that's the way you have to do it. You have to do proper journalism as opposed to just going for the sensationalist bullshit. With Mackay, when he was at trial, he really wanted to be put. This is the same as Peter Bryan, where he doesn't want to go to prison because prison is a horrible place, and you're surrounded by murderers and rapists and all horrible kinds of people. Whereas, back to the Peter Bryan episode, if you're in a psychiatric unit, you're treated well, you're given mental health care. Do you know, it's a softer environment, it's a nicer environment. Do you know, it's, for some people, it's survivable. Again, as with Peter Bryan, some people can't survive on the outside. Patrick Mackay could be the same in that he can't survive on the outside, but he can survive on the inside. And let's not forget, he spent a lot of his earlier life in institutions, so maybe he wants to go back to that kind of the only warm bosom that he's ever had, because he never had a family life, he never had a family, he never had homes, he's been battered left and right, whereas in psychiatric units, he's like there for a year to 2 years in various ones, and now he's been there 50 years. This is all he knows, and he's comfortable. So he's quoted as saying, "If only I'd been sent to Broadmoor when the trouble really started, maybe none of these killings may have taken place." You know, I kind of agree with him there. Do you know, if he would have got the help, he's not mentally unwell, but as someone who's had a horrible upbringing with a horrible parent who really should be the person who's held accountable for this. His father is clearly a nasty piece of shit, beating up his wife, beating up his children, a drunk, and filling his son's head with horrible stories. You know, and being abusive to his son as well. The father should be the one who's convicted of all these murders, even if it's manslaughter by default or whatever. Mackay also said, I should never have been allowed out into the world. I told doctors and psychiatrists I was not fit. This was in his early years. He was telling them that he needed help. They kept telling me I was all right. Even the doctor in charge at Moss Side Hospital in Liverpool considered I should be kept there, yet a mental health tribunal let me walk out. They should have known better. Go to Paul's, I think it's Paul's part 3 or part 4. Go to those and he dives more into the mental health side, which is, so go to that there. I'm deliberately not covering it here. I've just kind of alluded to it. What else we got? Just scrolling. His prison and parole. I was going to do a whole section about where he's been and what he's done, but we've kind of covered it. He's been in and out of category A. He's been moved down slowly, and now he's in a category D, which is an open prison. Which is not to say he can walk about and he can do whatever he likes, but the whole point is that, you know, he's in his early 70s. He's been there for 50 years. They've spent a lot of time trying to train him up to kind of get him ready for the real world. Whether they release him or not, it might happen, it might not happen. We just don't know. But they're kind of, when he does these days out, it's all monitored. He's got an ankle tag on. They don't just open the doors and go, there you go, mate, go and enjoy yourself. Like, limited places he can go to. He has to stay away from certain places. He has to tell them where he's going to go and what he's going to do. He has to leave at a set time. He has to be back at a certain time. He's got an ankle tag on. He will be monitored while he's out there. It's not like he does it every day. It's like a regular thing. It's like an occasional thing, but they keep an eye on him. You know, so it's all monitored. It's all very careful. The last thing they need, given the fact that he is a murderer, is for him to go out and go, oh, I went to a knife shop and then I murdered a child. Do you know, that just totally balls us up the entire system. So that's why we don't have that. I think that's all I really want to say about. That's all I have to say about that. I think that covers all of my bases for Patrick Mackay, Two Sides of a Psychopath. So I hope you enjoyed that. It has been a lot of research. It has been exhausting. I have enjoyed it, though. And as mentioned, me and Paul and I are definitely, we're working on a new series sometime for the new year. We're not too sure when, but we're going to piece it together. And it's... I think that'll be very exciting as well. So, TBC, folks, TBC. So, this is exciting. This will be my last recording for about 4 or 5 weeks. I can't wait. I'm going to enjoy Christmas. I'm going to be full of food and as drunk as Eva Green. Oh, what a way to spend Christmas. Right, quiz questions. What is Patrick Mackay's name today? It's David Groves. What film may have inspired his killing of the homeless man? It's A Clockwork Orange. It was if you go back to that era, it was in and around that era. It was very controversial around the time. Stanley Kubrick, it wasn't banned by the councils. Some councils had. Stanley Kubrick, the director himself, was the one who pulled it away from distribution because there was a lot of inverted commas, air quotes, copycat killings, which were attributed to the film, and he was fed up with that and he was getting death threats. So he kind of pulled it. But it was still, in and around the era that Mackay was there, it was still a big name film, as it was when I was born, like 3 or 4 years later. It was still a big story. So, could be that. Question number 3, what was Ivy's nickname? Auntie Ivy. Question number 4, how many children did she have? 7, technically 8. So if you said 7 or 8, that's both correct. Don't forget she had Karen, but Karen died early. Question number 5, what was the name of the man who owned the cafe and was last to see her alive? It was Ernest Hassler. So you can have a point for Ernest. Question number 6, what was the name name one of the TV programs she may have watched that night. So one was Master of Melody, one was Sunday Night at the Palladium, there was Once Before I Die, and then, of course, there was The News and Shutdown. Question number 7, what was the name of Ivy's neighbour? It was Stella Zammit. And while writing it, I thought to myself, she could have done with having a child who she named God, because then the child would be called God Zammit. There you go, there, a little joke there. And question number 8, in what court of the Old Bailey was Mackay tried? It was Court 2. So that's that, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. That is the final episode of Patrick Mackay, Two Sides of a Psychopath. I hope you've enjoyed the whole series. I am going to go off duty in a couple of days' time. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for supporting the show. Don't forget to leave a review or become a Patreon subscriber. Much appreciated. Have yourself a good Christmas. Stay safe and be good. Lots of love, everyone. Bye-bye.
Want more true crime? This podcast and loads more are part of the Always True Crime Network. It's packed with box sets to binge and twisted tales you won't find anywhere else. Find your next podcast obsession at alwaystruecrime.com.